Hey there, what you're seeing is me designing a Delta version. You'll see the assembly and everything in a moment. If anyone was wondering, I use Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta as versions. So Alpha is like A, first version, and so on. This was supposed to be a Bravo version, but I did one more edit, so it's now Delta. And I always skip Charlie just because the Slovak language takes CH at start of Charlie as a separate character, not as C, so I go Alpha, Bravo, Delta, Echo, and so on. So yeah, let's talk about the Delta version. So to assemble this, you need, as with the Polar Alpha, two M8 threaded rods. One is 98mm long and one is 70mm long. And also you need M3 rods. Two are 60mm long. These are necessary to tension the upper wheel of the puller. And two are optional to go to the top, as you'll see in the video. And these are 74mm long. So that's totally six threaded rods for the assembly. I'm sorry for the quality of the videos, but I'm pretty sure that no one will be watching these videos anyways, so I guess I'll improve the quality later. But yeah, I used to record on my Xiaomi phone, which has an okay camera, but I told myself I would try and use my older phone, which doesn't have a high quality camera, but I think it will work okay. At least I thought so. As I see now in the video, it's not that good, so I will maybe switch back to my Xiaomi phone for the recording. That's because I don't have a camera, at least not so far. I'm not sure if I will get one, but my phone will have to do it for now. What I did so far was to insert two bearings into the bottom parts, insert the lower M8 threaded rod with the shaft coupler and the lower wheel on it. Then I inserted 4 M3 nuts into the openings in the bottom parts, and then I attached the filament guides with M3 screws. You see me use a lighter to heat up the parts a bit. That's because the bottom of the parts I print with a raft are white from the bottom because of the adhesion to the raft. That's not necessary at all. Then I disassembled the top wheel and put in the spacer I printed. On the upper M8 rod there is M8 nut, bearing, spacer, bearing, and another M8 nut. Between the bearings, or on top of the spacer, there is the upper wheel. On the sides there are two M8 nylock nuts, which should be inserted backwards. Then we're good to insert the two shorter M3 rods. For the upper wheel tensioning, we're using two shorter M3 rods along with 4 washers, 2 nylock nuts and 2 springs. I don't have two identical springs, but I will work with what I have. To screw the nylock nuts on the rods, I will use a male to female standoff. I hoped its hex would be the size of M3 nut, but unfortunately that's not the case. First we insert the M3 rod, then put a washer, spring and another washer on it. Then we put a nylock nut onto the rod and screw it on. We do the same for the other side, and the last step before mounting the upper parts onto the rest of the puller is to insert a bracket on an end of both threaded rods. This bracket prevents the upper threaded rod from slipping to either left or right. I know I said I will design my extruder vertically earlier, and now you see me design a puller, but a friend suggested to me to use a horizontal setup, so I guess I will try it horizontally first. If I think later I could improve it by a vertical setup, I maybe will redesign it. I will let you know about that in a video in which I will talk about my design, which is not yet completely finished. You see me testing the fit of the upper wheel and the threaded rod between the upper parts, and that's because the nylock nuts on the upper M8 threaded rod need to be exactly apart, I mean the distance between them. That's because the brackets, the printed brackets on M3 rods will hold them in place, and they can be loose and they can be too tight, so that might need some adjusting, but it takes like 3 tries to get it okay. And also there's need to adjust the nylock nuts on the M3 threaded rods, because you need the perfect tension. I mean, not exactly perfect, but you need the right tension on the upper wheel, and since my springs are not equal, they are not identical, I need to adjust it so the upper wheel is level. You see me, this step is not that necessary, but I think it's a good thing to do. Insert the longer M3 threaded rods on top of the top part, and this is to ensure that this distance between the bottom of the top part is the same as distance between top of the top parts, so it's perpendicular to the platform or whatever you're screwing the puller itself on. For that you need 4 M3 nuts on each side, so that's total of 8 M3 nuts. You see me testing the puller with my headphones. I will test it with the real filament, but I was just curious about how well will it pull, and it works quite great, better than I expected. Although I am a little concerned about the roundness of the lower wheel, because of course I want the perfect circle. But as I put a hot glue on it, it probably isn't that smooth and it's a bit uneven. And although I tried to put more glue on it and I used a soldering iron to even it out and smoothen it a bit, I'm not sure how well will it work in practice, but hopefully it will be okay. And I will test it later, well, with my filament extruder. Now we will try to insert M3 rods on the top, and later you'll see me use the real filament. Now I'm testing with the headphones again after I finished everything. Then I will try to drive it with my drill. So we'll test high RPM, and the last thing I will do is to try it with actual filament that is 1.75 millimeters in diameter. So I was trying the force needed for the puller to slip, and I expected a little bit more. However, it should be enough. If more friction will be needed, I will put hot glue on the upper wheel as well. Well, I think that should do for now. See you later.